test is, who is my enemy?
Mass Effect was amazing. We all know this. It was one of the seminal achievements in gaming these past 2 years. However, does that mean that when a solid action role-playing game like Rise of the Argonauts appears on the scene, that we should summarily dismiss it because it's not Mass Effect? Well, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but that's exactly what the gaming press seemed to do. And again, that's too damn bad because Rise of the Argonauts is a pretty damn cool game. A must for any good RPG, Rise starts off with a bang, weaving a colorful storyline and introducing you to some memorable characters, enough to get you hooked early on. The first sequence in the game, point of fact, is pretty freaking badass. You as King Jason are about to be married to your childhood sweetheart, but an assassin has other plans, critically wounding Jason's beloved and spoiling the festivities before anybody can even sniff the celebratory wine. From here, Jason learns that his only hope in restoring his queen to life is to set out in an epic search for the Golden Fleece, facing monsters, treachery, and a rogue's gallery of characters as he goes. Greek mythology purists already know that we've strayed far from the source material of Jason and the Argonauts, but who the hell cares? The writers here deliver a very compelling reason to keep playing the game, even when the plot is at its weakest ebb. There's hardly ever any confusion as to what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be going to get it done. Despite very obviously being a game that was inspired by the aforementioned Mass Effect, Rise is essentially Mass Effect Light. The world in which you operate is small in comparison to the universe of Mass Effect and much more linear. However, the game is much more focused on its plot throughout the entirety of the experience, which means this works great. Despite the overall lack of optional side quests, of which there are only a few, at least the game gives you a choice in deciding which destination you want to tackle first. For example, several islands are arrayed before you, and you must complete each one before you can hope to win the game, but you can choose which one you want to tackle first. It's not choice paradise like Mass Effect, but the option is nice. The game's combat can be fun, though at its core it's a very simple affair and is perhaps too easy to master. Strangely, despite Rise being billed as an action RPG, the combat is sparsely littered throughout the game and never serves as the most compelling reason to continue playing. Basically, you swap between a bludgeoning weapon, a sword, and a spear, and while you will earn upgraded weapons at the game's own time, don't expect to be kicking it Kratos style here. In a cool twist, you can at least dedicate heroic feats to the Greek deity of your choice and, as a result, earn new skills and so-called god powers that help to liven up the combat. Still, having said that, the wealth of skills and powers seems like overkill given the modest length of the game and its overall lack of challenge. So okay, combat isn't the pinnacle of the game design, but rather the exploration of each new island and the characters that dwell thereon. Branching conversation trees bring Mass Effect to mind yet again and offer you the opportunity to craft your own King Jason in terms of personality. And even conversations will net you feats on occasion, a satisfying way to make these interactions feel like a crucial part of the game and its storyline. On the downside, the game seems to know where its strengths lie a bit too much. As for a so-called action RPG, it is surprisingly devoid of bloodletting and a bit too fat with conversations that drone on way longer than they should. This sometimes kills the urgency the very beginning of the game tried so hard to create, and makes it seem as though Jason isn't in much of a hurry to revive his queen after all. Unskippable conversations are an even bigger issue. One philosophical debate mandatory to completing the main quest is particularly glaring. Traipsing across the game's islands can be fun the first time around, but when you've cleared the enemies from your path and find that you still have a lot of backtracking to do, it can be frustrating and downright boring at times. Another pace killer. And the lack of a minimap exacerbates the problem, as you may find yourself getting lost even though you know exactly what direction you should be running in. Of all the game's flaws, this omission may be the most unforgivable, and serves to make some of it feel more like busy work than actual gameplay. The graphics are another disappointment, coming off as thoroughly last gen. At least some good art direction gives it a free pass of sorts, and the soundtrack more than compensates. The music score is one of the best I've ever heard accompanying a video game, actually. If anything, perhaps it makes the game sound more epic than it actually is. All in all, Rise of the Argonauts may not be exactly what it was advertised to be, an action-intensive RPG, but once you overcome these expectations and stop comparing it to Mass Effect, what you have is an all-around solid and compelling adventure game that deserves far more credit than it has so far received. Check it out. You could do a lot worse.
Either with the gods